This film begins with a CIA agent named JJ, who is on a plane to protect a famous singer named Ryan Kerr. Ryan is planning to hold a concert in Germany. During the flight, a flight attendant offers JJ a drink. But being a careful CIA agent, JJ gets suspicious and checks if the drink is poisoned. It turns out JJ was right. The drink is poisoned. The flight attendant is actually a criminal in disguise, and he kidnaps Ryan. Without thinking, JJ quickly attacks the flight attendant, leading to a big fight on the plane. In the middle of their fight, JJ's stepdaughter, a teenage girl named Sophie, shows up with some high-tech gadgets. She blows up part of the plane using a grenade. Because of the explosion, JJ, Ryan, and the flight attendant are thrown out of the plane. There, Sophie watches as the flight attendant falls, but she manages to catch JJ and Ryan just in time. After that, Sophie asks JJ if she can have dinner with Ryan on Saturday night. JJ says no because they have wrestling practice together. Annoyed by this, Sophie lets go of JJ, making him fall. Soon after, Ryan apologizes and also refuses Sophie's dinner request. This makes Sophie even more upset, so she lets go of Ryan too, letting him fall as well. At the same time, Sophie woke up from her sleep because everything that happened was just a dream. Since she had to go to school, Sophie quickly got ready and went to the kitchen, where JJ was making breakfast for her. Even though Sophie is his stepdaughter, JJ loves her like she's his own daughter. He also takes good care of his pets, a betta fish named Blue and a dog. Not long after, JJ received a video call from his wife, Sophie's mom, who was working in Africa as a nurse in a refugee camp. During their chat, JJ told her to be careful at work and asked her to come back to America soon because both he and Sophie missed her a lot. In another scene, JJ was at the CIA office with his colleague Bobby and other CIA members. They were helping another agent, Christina, who was sneaking into a secret Russian intelligence office. When JJ saw a guard approaching Christina, he quickly warned her so she could knock out the guard and enter the secret room to copy nuclear data. Without wasting any time, Christina quickly put on her gloves and started copying all the data to a flash drive. While the data was being copied, JJ noticed a group of armed guards heading towards the secret room and told Christina to escape immediately. But she refused, saying she would wait until the data copying was finished. This made JJ and the other CIA agents in the control room very worried, because if Christina got caught, it could lead to a war between Russia and America. Fortunately, just as the guards arrived at the secret room, Christina finished copying the data and escaped with the nuclear information. Meanwhile, a man named Crane, who is a dangerous criminal, received a message about his next target. Without delay, Crane prepared his weapons and quickly set off to carry out his new mission. Back at the CIA office, JJ received praise from the CIA leader, David Kim, for successfully guiding Christina in completing her mission to copy the nuclear data. David then mentioned that the data included the location of a 23 kilograms Russian nuclear suitcase. At school, Sophie was practicing with the choir because her school was going to participate in a choir competition at the Vatican. During practice, Ryan, who is Sophie's school friend, was also there because he is the leader of the school choir team. After practice, Sophie talked with her close friend, Colin, who is David's son. Sophie told Colin that she liked Ryan and dreamed of Ryan becoming a famous singer, with her stepfather as his manager. Hearing this, Colin advised Sophie not to confess her feelings to Ryan because, as far as Colin knew, Ryan was a playboy who often played with girls' hearts. Meanwhile, Christina, after finishing her mission, decided to take a short vacation before returning to the CIA headquarters in America to hand over the flash drive with the nuclear data. But unexpectedly, Crane found Christina. He pointed a gun at her and demanded the nuclear data. With no other choice, Christina gave him the flash drive, but Crane ended up killing her. Later in the afternoon, after Sophie came home from school, she joined her self-defense training, which was supervised by JJ. Thanks to JJ's regular training, Sophie's martial arts skills were better than most other teenagers. However, when he asked her to do some extra training, she refused, saying she had to go home to do her schoolwork. When JJ and Sophie were in the parking lot, getting ready to go home, Sophie received a message from her choir coach. The message said that her school's choir group would be leaving for the Vatican in 2 days. Sophie was really excited because she would get to travel abroad with her friends. The next morning, JJ told Bobby that he wanted to go with Sophie to the Vatican because he couldn't let her go alone. Bobby suggested that JJ ask David for permission, so JJ went to talk to his boss about it. When David found out that Colin was also going to the Vatican with Sophie's choir group, he agreed to let JJ go so he could watch over both Colin and the other students. Meanwhile, David and the other CIA members didn't know that Christina had been killed and that Crane had stolen the flash drive with the nuclear data. On the day of departure for the Vatican, JJ went to Sophie's school to join the choir group. Even though she didn't like JJ following her, she couldn't do anything about it because the other parents were happy that JJ was going to look after their children. At that time, Sophie's homeroom teacher, Nancy, also thanked JJ for helping take care of the students. Arriving at the Vatican, Sophie's school choir group took a boat tour around the city before heading to their hotel to rest. As evening approached, JJ was surprised when Nancy, the homeroom teacher, came to his room. She asked JJ to help make sure all the students were in their rooms by 10 p.m. As it was almost 10 p.m., JJ began checking the students' rooms. To his surprise, many rooms were empty, and JJ started to panic. He soon discovered that all the students were gathered in one room, having a little party and drinking together. JJ was upset and scolded them, telling them to go back to their own rooms immediately. Just then, Nancy knocked on the door after hearing the noise from inside the room. When she opened the door, the students quickly pretended they were practicing choir with JJ to avoid getting in trouble. Nancy then told everyone to rest because they had a big choir competition the next day. Meanwhile, back at the CIA, David got news that Christina, who was supposed to have arrived in Germany, had been missing for several days. Worried, David quickly contacted his team in Berlin to start searching for Christina. Back at the hotel, Sophie and Colin secretly invited Ryan to go for a walk around the hotel. Unfortunately, JJ caught them. There, Sophie pleaded with JJ to let them go out for a little while. Feeling sorry for them, he allowed the three to go for a 35-minute walk. While walking around the hotel, Colin suddenly remembered that he had forgotten to take his allergy medicine. He told Sophie and Ryan that he needed to go back to the hotel to take his medicine and promised to join them soon. Unfortunately, on his way back, Colin was kidnapped by a group of people in a van. Sophie saw the kidnapping and quickly grabbed a bicycle that was nearby to chase after the van. During the chase, Sophie fell off the bike and was almost hit by a car, but JJ arrived just in time to save her. Sophie then told her dad that Colin had been kidnapped, leaving JJ worried because he knew David would hold him responsible. At the CIA office, David received a call from Crane, who had kidnapped Colin. At that time, Crane demanded that David come to Rome alone to pick up a special tool that Crane had set up. He warned David not to bring the police or any other CIA members, or he would harm Colin. After the call ended, David immediately contacted JJ to ask what had happened to Colin. JJ apologized and admitted that it was his fault for not watching over the kids properly. And David, not wanting to argue, told JJ to go to Rome the next day and monitor him remotely while he went to retrieve the item from the kidnapper. Back with JJ and Sophie, Sophie showed her dad a photo she had taken of the kidnapper before chasing the van. When JJ saw the photo, he recognized the kidnapper as Crane, who used to be one of JJ's colleagues in the military. The next morning, David arrived in Rome and went to the location Crane had told him about, while JJ and Sophie watched from the roof of a nearby building. After David picked up a secret box from Crane, he quickly returned to the car, which was being driven by Bobby. Soon after, David picked up JJ and Sophie and scolded JJ for not taking better care of Colin. And Sophie, who overheard, explained that the kidnapping happened because she and Colin left the hotel without telling JJ. After hearing Sophie's explanation, David stopped blaming JJ and opened the secret box from Crane. Inside, they found a cell phone with a voice message. In the message, Crane ordered David to go to NATO headquarters and steal the nuclear activation code. At that time, Crane planned to exchange the code for Colin. It turned out that Crane had found a nuclear bomb using the data he got from Christina. But he couldn't activate the bomb because the code was stored at NATO headquarters. That's why he kidnapped Colin to force David to get the code for him. With no other choice, David planned to go to NATO headquarters. There, JJ asked if he could take Sophie back to the hotel first, but since they were short on time, David insisted that Sophie come along with them. Meanwhile, the choir coach told the students to practice harder before the competition. He also informed them that Sophie and Colin wouldn't be participating because they had important matters to attend to with JJ. Sometime later, David and his team arrived at NATO headquarters. Because of his important position, David was able to enter easily and meet the colonel in charge. When the colonel asked why David and his team were there, he casually said they were on vacation and just passing through, so they decided to stop by. The colonel believed his story and invited them to look around the headquarters. Meanwhile, Bobby and Sophie pretended they needed to use the restroom but were actually searching for the nuclear activation code. To distract the colonel, David and JJ kept him busy by watching a boxing match happening at the headquarters. He even asked JJ to participate in the match to buy more time while Bobby and Sophie searched. JJ reluctantly agreed and joined the match, not putting up much of a fight against his opponent. Fortunately, Bobby and Sophie soon returned, having successfully stolen the nuclear activation code. Seeing this, JJ pretended to give up in the match so it would end quickly. An hour later, David received a message from Crane, requesting to trade the nuclear activation codes for Colin at a specific address. Without wasting time, David and his team headed straight to the location. When they arrived, David asked JJ to go with him, while Bobby and Sophie waited at a nearby cafe, monitoring the situation from a distance. Soon, Crane arrived in a large car and suddenly crashed into David's car, causing David and JJ to lose consciousness. Crane's men then took them to the gang's hideout. Meanwhile, Bobby and Sophie, who saw what happened, secretly followed Crane's gang to their hiding place. A few moments later, David and JJ woke up and found themselves tied up in what seemed like an abandoned building. Crane then appeared and greeted them, saying that his boss would be coming soon to meet them. To their surprise, Crane's boss turned out to be Nancy, who had been pretending to be a teacher to hide her true identity as a major criminal. Nancy revealed her plan that she wanted to place the nuclear bomb at the choir competition, where many high school students and officials from different countries would be present. Her goal was to demand ransom from each country, threatening to detonate the bomb if they didn't pay. Nancy then demanded the nuclear activation code from David, promising to release Colin in return. With no other options, David gave her the code. However, Nancy broke her promise. She ordered her men to take David away and planned to kill Colin, whom she saw as useless now. Before leaving, she injected poison into JJ's body. And JJ, using all his remaining strength, tried to free himself from the ropes but eventually passed out as the poison spread through his body. Shortly after, Bobby and Sophie arrived just in time, finding JJ and quickly giving him an antidote to the poison. Once JJ was safe, he, Bobby, and Sophie set out to chase after Crane, who had taken Colin to a hidden location. Meanwhile, Nancy took David to the Vatican, planning to activate the nuclear bomb. When Crane arrived at his destination, he discovered that Colin had escaped. There, Crane began searching for him in a nearby sunflower garden. After walking through the garden for a while, he finally found Colin. Just as Crane was about to shoot him, JJ appeared and fought Crane. From a distance, Bobby tried to help JJ by shooting at Crane, but she missed, allowing Crane to escape. After rescuing Colin, JJ, Bobby, and Sophie hurried to the Vatican to stop Nancy from detonating the bomb. When they arrived at the competition venue, they saw many important officials from different countries who had come to watch the choir competition. Meanwhile, Nancy and her team were in the basement of the Vatican, setting up the nuclear bomb. Soon after, she sent a video of the bomb installation to the countries attending the event, demanding a ransom of $50 million from each country to prevent the bomb from going off. She gave them only 30 minutes to make the payment. At the same time, JJ and Bobby prepared to enter the basement to find David, using the high-tech gadgets Bobby had brought. Before going in, JJ asked Sophie and Colin to wait outside. In the basement, Crane joined Nancy and her team as they worked to activate the nuclear bomb. David stood by, unable to resist or stop the criminals. Meanwhile, JJ and Bobby managed to find where Nancy's group was hiding, but their presence was quickly discovered by Crane. Suddenly, Crane attacked JJ, beating him badly. To make matters worse, Crane showed JJ a photo of his pet fish which Crane had killed when he broke into JJ's empty house. This made JJ furious, and he fought back, taking on Crane and his men with renewed anger. During the chaos, Nancy quietly slipped out of the basement, and Crane decided to escape as well. He got into a car, taking with him a remote that could detonate the nuclear bomb. JJ quickly hopped on a motorbike and chased after Crane. At the same time, Bobby contacted Sophie to inform her about JJ's chase. When Sophie heard this, she quickly stole a motorbike from the side of the road and sped off to catch up with JJ, who was still pursuing Crane. Meanwhile, David was trying to catch up with Nancy, but he was stopped by two CIA agents who mistakenly thought he had betrayed them and joined Nancy's gang. There, David quickly explained the misunderstanding to the armed agents. Back with JJ and Sophie, who were still chasing Crane, JJ made a daring move by jumping into Crane's car to stop him. They both got out of the car and started fighting again near the riverbank. Unfortunately, JJ was in a tough spot when Crane pointed a gun at him. But just in time, Sophie arrived and threw a few knives at Crane, giving JJ the chance to defeat the criminal. At the same time, the remote control for the nuclear bomb was still in the car, which had rolled into the river. JJ and Sophie quickly jumped into the river to retrieve the remote. Fortunately, they managed to grab it and stop the bomb from exploding with just 2 seconds to spare. In the midst of the chaos, Colin spotted Nancy and shouted, calling her a bad woman. This drew a crowd, and even one woman started hitting Nancy. Shortly after, David and his team arrived and arrested Nancy. In the final scene, Sophie apologized to JJ for causing so much trouble and promised to be a better daughter by listening to him. Hearing that, he smiled and told Sophie she didn't need to apologize. He also admitted that he was proud of her for helping him stop the criminals. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is sometimes saving the world just means keeping track of your fish and not letting your stepdaughter get too good at throwing knives. Also, don't trust your teacher because she might secretly be a supervillain.